This PowerPoint will briefly look at the research methodology, but bear in mind that more detail and depth will be gone over in class. Now, the difference between a research method is that the research method are techniques and methods for actually conducting the research, whereas the research methodology is a systematic process to solve the research question. So there's a difference between the research method and the research methodology. Now, if we look at the structure, we can see this includes the introduction, the research philosophy, the research paradigm, research method, the research approach, the data collection method, the reliability, validity, the method of data analysis, the ethics, limitations of the methodology, and conclusions. With the introduction, here you're going to talk about the aim of the chapter, why the methodology chapter is so important, and the summary of the structure of the whole chapter. Philosophy. This is a belief about the way in which the data about a phenomenon is gathered, analyzed, and used. And there are different types. Ontology, which deals with the question of what is real or deals with the nature of reality. Epistemology is the study of the nature of knowledge and the process by which knowledge is acquired and validated. And then we have axiology, which refers to how the researcher sees the role of the value in the research. So you have different types of research philosophies, and which research philosophy are you actually adopting and why? If we think about the research paradigm, well, the research paradigm is to described as the underlying assumptions and the intellectual structure upon which research and development in a field of inquiry is based, or a set of beliefs and feelings about the world and how it should be understood and studied. If we think about the different research methods now, are you going to be conducting quantitative or qualitative? Quantitative being a systematic scientific investigation of data and their relationships, whereas qualitative tends to collect rich, descriptive, and less structured data than quantitative data. Examines the way people understand experience and make sense of the world around them, and tends to answer the question of why. Or are you going to be using a mixed method of both quantitative and qualitative? And if so, why? The research approach, are you going to be adopting a deductive approach or an inductive approach? A deductive approach, this type of approach works with the general to more specific. It's a top-down method approach, whereas the inductive is the opposite to that, which is a bottom-upward, works upwards from the specific to more general conclusions. And with this approach, you carry out the data collection and analysis, and then develop a theory on the basis of the work that you've actually done. The data collection method, and you will need to determine if you're going to be conducting primary or secondary research or a combination of the both. Now, if you're doing research project, then you won't need to undertake primary research, and you won't have time to undertake primary research as well. But if you're doing final business research project, then you will need to undertake both secondary and primary research as required in the learning outcomes. And you will need to determine, obviously, if you're going to be doing quantitative methods, qualitative data collection, or a mixture of the both. And then you will need to determine how you're going to collect your data. Is it going to be with the use of questionnaires? In questionnaires, you can have various different types. You can have online questionnaires, telephone questionnaires, face-to-face questionnaires. Is it going to be with interviews? Is it going to be focus groups, or are you going to use observations? But this will depend upon your research aims and objectives if you're doing quantitative or qualitative research, and the best method within the time frame and the limitations that you have in order to achieve your topic title. The next section, reliability, validity, and generalizability, relates to the reliability in terms of consistency. Validity, it kind of measures what it intends to measure. In terms of validity in qualitative research, it involves determining the degree to which researchers' claims about knowledge correspond to the reality. And then generalizability describes the extent to which research findings can be applied to settings other than that in which they were originally tested. Of data analysis, but obviously depend upon if you're doing primary and secondary research. If you're doing secondary research and you're looking at articles and research already previously conducted, then you will see a lot of the data analysis already conducted for you, so you won't need to conduct it yourself or secondary research. But if you're doing primary research, then once you've collected the data and the raw data, you will need then to analyze the data. And what methods are you going to use? The mean, the mode, the median, the standard deviation, the coefficient of variation. And I've already provided you with videos in terms of how to calculate all of these within a table format once you've collected your data. So you need to look at that video in relation to this. So what methods are you going to use? And you should be able to know how to calculate these directly from your data collected from your tables. The ethics section, here you need to describe the ethical process, why ethics is important, looking at the soft copy of data store and server and password, hard copy stored on the lock and key, the applications of ethics, online registration. We're looking at forms in terms of information sheets, consent forms and risk assessment forms, and then approved, rejected, and minor corrections and major corrections. So this section, ethics, does need to be present and reviewed within your methodology. You also have the limitations of the methodology, which again will depend upon the research method adopted, whether it's qualitative and quantitative. And finally, you will have your conclusions. And it's going to be recommended that you write this regularly. Do with free writing. Define the method of inquiry, justify the method, define the instrument, and show links between the method and other researchers' work. So we've covered briefly the methodology, but more detail and depth will be provided online and in class.